Hello, I am Dr. Sundeep Salvi, the Director of Pulmocare Research and Education Foundation and CHEST Research and Training Private Limited, situated in the city of Pune. 31st of May is recognized as the World No Tobacco Day for a very specific reason. Tobacco is one of the leading causes of death and suffering across the globe. An estimated 1.25 billion people use tobacco in some form or the other globally. In India, 267 million people use tobacco, of which 110 million use the combustible form of tobacco called as tobacco smoking, either in the form of a bidi or in the form of a cigarette, or even sometimes other forms of combustible smoke, such as the hookah, the chillum, and there are so many other varieties of tobacco smoking that are present in India. 48% of men and 20% of women above the age of 15 in India use or have used some form of tobacco during their lifetime. An estimated 1.3 million people die in India because of the use of tobacco. And this accounts for about 177,000 crore rupees that are lost because of the health impacts or the amount of money that is spent on treating tobacco related ailments. So clearly, tobacco is a leading cause of suffering and death in our country. And in order to create awareness about the harmful effects of tobacco, the world recognizes 31st of May as the World No Tobacco Day. It was initiated by the World Health Organization on the 31st of May in 1987. And since then, every year, 31st of May is recognized as the World No Tobacco Day. Every year, there is a separate theme. And for this year, in 2025, the theme is Unmasking the Appeal, exposing the industry tactics on tobacco and nicotine related products. And I believe that this is an extremely important theme, primarily because the industry is pushing their way forward to entice people, especially young children, to start using the tobacco products. And it is important for us to be aware of that. And therefore, this theme has been very well chosen for this particular year. Tobacco is a naturally occurring alkaloid that is produced by a species of plants called Solanaceae, also called as nightshade. The nicotine that it produces is first formed in the roots, and then it is transported to the leaves where it is stored. The reason why the plant started producing nicotine was because it was a very important and a naturally occurring insecticide that prevented the insects and the animals to eat this plant. So it was a protective mechanism that plants used so that nobody eats their leaves. The nightshade plant, which primarily produces nicotine, has various species, and you will perhaps be surprised to know that a lot of foods that we eat also contain nicotine. For example, the potatoes, the tomatoes, or the eggplant, some of the green pepper also produce nicotine, but they produce nicotine about 18,000 times lesser than what the tobacco plant produces. In some form or the other, all of us consume tobacco, but it is not sufficient to cause harm, and especially not sufficient to cause any form of addiction. So the reason why people use tobacco is because it gives them a feeling of high. The nicotine that is present in tobacco stimulates the brain cells where the receptors are activated, and this leads to the release of dopamine inside the brain. Now, dopamine is a very nice hormone that gives you a nice feeling. It puts you a little high. And this feeling that you get after you consume nicotine is responsible for creating addiction. Addiction can happen with even one cigarette, one simple cigarette that you smoke, or even two cigarettes. So it's an extremely addicting substance. It is as addicting, if not more, than heroin, than alcohol, and cannabis. It is more addicting than any of these substances. So the addiction actually then leads to dependence, and once you start using nicotine present in the tobacco, then your body starts craving for it more and more, and that's when you get addicted to this nicotine substance. And once you're addicted, you get hooked onto it, and you want to have more and more of this chemical, because the brain is now wanting more of this to release more dopamine. So that's the reason why nicotine is a highly addicting substance, and that is what actually leads to people wanting more of it. Now, to take the nicotine inside your blood, and especially for it to reach the brain, you can do that in various forms. The most widely used form across the globe is a combustible form of tobacco, which then produces the gas, the nicotine that is released from the combustion. When you smoke, it enters inside your respiratory tract, from where it gets absorbed through the blood circulation and reaches the brain within a few seconds. Along with the nicotine, a whole host of different pollutants enter inside the lung. So you smoke the cigarette, or you smoke the bidi, or you smoke the hookah, or any form of combustible tobacco. You smoke because you want to extract the nicotine from that. But along with the nicotine, there are 4,000 different chemicals that enter inside the body. A major part of that is the tar. A tar is all the particulate matter pollutants that come along with the nicotine because of the burning of the leaf products, burning of the paper, and what all is burnt when you burn the form of tobacco. So 4,000 different chemicals enter inside your lung when you start smoking, and a large number of these, several hundred of these, are actually carcinogens. And these carcinogens get deposited in different parts of the lung, especially the distal portion of the lung, in the alveoli, or even along the airways. And if that happens over a long period of time, then these chemicals actually stimulate the production of cancerous cells, and then you end up developing lung cancer. So these carcinogens are extremely harmful that are present in the tobacco smoke. What is interesting is the tobacco smoke that enters inside your lung is called as the mainstream smoke. And when you're not smoking, you can still see the cigarette being lighted and emitting some smoke. That is called as a side stream smoke. The side stream smoke contains more number of particles and more number of carcinogens than what the mainstream smoke produces. And therefore, the harm is caused not only to the person who is smoking the tobacco, but also the people who are around him, sitting or chatting with him. So this is called as passive smoking or secondary smoke. And secondary smoke is a lot more harmful than the mainstream smoke. It's important to know that, because that is the reason why smoking in public places is banned, because it causes more harm to the person sitting next to them than to the person who actually smokes. So the tobacco ban was earlier introduced in the flights, and I still remember many years ago when I used to sit in a flight, tobacco smoking was allowed, and you can only imagine the amount of smoke that used to fill the plane, and you could just do nothing about it because there is no ventilation while sitting in a plane. So now tobacco is banned not only in aeroplanes, but also in public transport buses, and also in public transport areas, or even in hotels and restaurants, tobacco smoking is banned for a very good reason. Other than the risk of developing lung cancer, which is one of the most hazardous complication of tobacco smoking, the other important lung complication that happens is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, also called as COPD. In the Western world, tobacco smoking is the leading cause of COPD, accounting for about 70% of the burden of COPD in the developed countries. And in fact, the realization that tobacco can cause COPD was only established as recently as in the 1960s or early 1970s, based on the studies that were done in the city of London. And this is despite the fact that tobacco smoking has been in vogue for a very, very long time. In fact, tobacco smoking actually started from South America, and from there it spread to all other parts of the world. During the World War I and World War II, tobacco smoking was highly, highly prevalent. And there was specific reasons for it, because you had to engage these soldiers at a time when they had to be wide awake, they had to be very active, fighting the wars. And because of lack of food and other nutrients, tobacco smoking was actually helping them, because it was reducing their hunger pangs. So, tobacco smoking became rampant during the World War II. And the British, who actually started promoting it after the World War II was over, they suddenly realized that the number of lung cancer cases improved or increased significantly in the hospitals. And this was based on a study that looked at the records of lung cancer deaths in the UK. And they made an observation that those who smoked tobacco were very strongly associated with developing lung cancer and dying from it. So, in the 1960s, that was the first time that people realized that smoking tobacco was actually causing harm. In the early 1970s, tobacco smoking was shown to be associated with COPD, or chronic bronchitis as it was called at that time. And that was the first time that people realized that tobacco smoke can cause a chronic lung disease, chronic progressive lung disease called COPD. So, since then, a lot of studies have been conducted in different parts of the world who have only established the harmful effects of tobacco smoke on the respiratory system. Other than lung cancer and COPD, the risk of developing pneumonias, the risk of developing acute bronchitis, the risk of developing recurrent respiratory tract infections, or even problems associated with the oral cavity. So, that could be in the form of staining of the teeth, bad odor, bad breath, gingivitis, and also the risk of developing oral cancers were observed. So, tobacco smoking, which people do because they want to extract the nicotine that is present in the tobacco, causes a lot more harm because of the other substances that they inhale along with nicotine. The other system that is widely affected because of tobacco smoking is the cardiovascular system, and this includes development of atherosclerosis, development of ischemic heart disease, development of arrhythmias, and also development of sudden heart attacks. So, the cardiovascular system is also significantly affected because of the tobacco smoke that you inhale. The risk of developing strokes, the risk of developing dementia, the risk of developing Parkinson's, which is a chronic neurological condition, are all associated with chronic use of tobacco. So, not a single organ is spared because of the tobacco smoke. Apart from the lungs, the heart, the brain, the kidneys are affected, the muscles are affected, the bones are affected. And this then gives rise to a significant amount of diseases that are associated with tobacco smoke. And as I mentioned earlier, in a country like India, 1.3 million people die because of the use of tobacco. and something needs to be done seriously to reduce the number of tobacco smokers in our country. What is interesting to note is, despite the fact that tobacco smoking is known to be associated with a whole host of different health ailments, why doesn't the government ban tobaccos completely? And I think the answer is pretty simple. The most important reason is the economic impact of tobacco smoking. The government levies a tax of around 53% on all tobacco related products. And this earns about 75,000 crore rupees for the government on a yearly basis. This is equivalent to about 3% of the total income that the government has. So, somebody making 75,000 crore rupees every year, uh, they would certainly not like to ban tobacco smoking because it's giving them a lot of money. What is very ironical is the fact the National Tobacco Control Program was initiated by the government in about 2007 2008 in order to reduce or minimize or stop the use of nicotine related products. Do you know how much money that the government spends for the National Tobacco Control Program every year? A meager 50 crores. They make 75,000 crores because of the taxes that they levy on the tobacco related products. But they spend only 50 crores for the National Tobacco Control Program. That's the sad part. That is one reason why the governments don't want to ban. Other than that, there are societal pressures. Uh, if you tell people you're not going to smoke, you're not going to drink alcohol, I think that's going to be a big reason why the government can collapse. And the political parties are very clear that they do not want to implement such societal rules that would be very unpopular among the public. So, to give the people the freedom to choose what they want to do is another reason why tobacco is not banned in our country. There are other reasons as well, and this includes the tobacco related farming, the tobacco related products that are made. It employs around 20 million people in our country. And these 20 million people actually feed more than 45 million people uh, that are associated with them. So, if you ban tobacco, it's going to have a big impact on the business and the livelihood of a lot of people, around at least around 50 million people, because of if at all there was a ban. And finally, even if the government says no, I'm going to ban tobacco, the implementation of that is not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge to implement tobacco ban, and that would actually encourage a lot of underground dealing with tobacco and so on. In fact, that would cause more issues, more problems, the under dealing of nicotine or tobacco related products. So these are the various reasons why the government does not want to ban tobacco in our country, and that is a situation in most of the countries of the world. In fact, there is only one country in the world that has been successful in banning tobacco completely, and that is Ireland. No other country in the world has been able to do this for obvious reasons. So, because of this, now it is up to us, the lay people, to understand the problems and the issues that are related with tobacco smoking. And once we are aware of it, then at least we can do something to minimize, if not completely ban, tobacco use in our country.